The Gremlins actually didn't start this morning. They actually started last week. Because last week, when I did my talk, there was no sound. So last week, on YouTube and Facebook and the website, there's no video.
I think I might be one of the Gremlins.
Well, it doesn't make any difference who the Gremlins were. I think it's Mercury in retrograde again. But anyway, I'm making that point with you this morning because we're in a series, and to do a series, not having last week's talk kind of puts a big hole in the series. So I'm going to use a lot of last week's again. I'm trying to be kind to all of you who were here last week, so you don't have to hear the whole thing again. So I have sort of worked in last week's talk with what I was going to say this week, so that we can sort of keep that going in this series called Creating a World That Works for Everyone. So if you hear something twice, forgive me. maybe that's supposed to happen too, huh?
Yeah, we needed a reminder.
Okay. So last week's talk was creating a world that works for everyone. This week's talk is creating a value-driven world. So again, we will have a little bit of last week's and this week's. And to recap, when I do a series, I try to do a little recap anyway. So week 1 of the series, to recap that just a bit, that talk was entitled Transform Our World by Transforming Our Lives. So we have to realize that the power that we have just in transforming our own life and exploring our own individual role in creating this world is how we realize that we actually can make a difference in the world for everyone. We talked about it that week. It's the power of our own energy. Each and every one of us, the words we speak, the thoughts we think, the actions we take are all energy. And our energy is a vibration that touches everyone else. And so when we realize that we do have that power to touch everyone just by the energy that we are emitting and emoting, we can make a difference. And sometimes, we look around and we think, what's the use? I can't make a difference anyway. But that's really not true. We all can transform this world by transforming our own thoughts, our own actions, and our own words. So what we wanted to do that week, that Sunday, was I wanted to make the point of the power that each of us has. We each have that power, and we must know that, and we must be able to consciously use that energy in a positive way, not only for ourselves, but for others as well. So this power that we have, if we're unaware of it, we can sometimes affect it for not good. But when we're aware of the energy that we have, and we're aware that we can use it in a positive manner, we can truly make a difference. It makes everyone's life different, including our own. And the other thing we've been given, besides the power that we have through our energetic vibrations, we have been given the power to choose. We get to choose how we show up in the world. We're not at mercy of anybody else. We get to choose, no matter what we're confronted with. We get to choose how we deal with it. I don't always get to choose what happens, but I do get the choice when I'm being conscious and positive. I get to choose how I deal with it. And believe me, this was a good talk for me because this has been one of those weeks where I really have to watch how I'm dealing with some of what is going on this whole week. Anyway, but we do have to live in that, you know, we talked about this too, about living from our being awake, aware, and conscious. It's how we make the world work for us, our world, and how we make the world work around us. We realize and agree that not only do we have that power, but we are interdependent on one another. You know, again, that old saying, no man is an island. We are interdependent. We're built that way. We're created that way. And so being interdependent on one another is really what makes it work for everybody. And so we want to remind ourselves of that too. And in that talk that I gave that Sunday, we touched on the point that our world, our country has sort of gotten away from that interdependence on one another. And we've suddenly decided that we want to be divided. Take my side, you take your side. We're not going to be interdependent. We're going to be obstinate and ostracized and all those kind of things. And we see it all around us. And that's why our world isn't working for us. Our world will not work that way because we're not created to show up that way. We are created to be interdependent on one another. And that way, everything works. It doesn't work to take sides, point fingers, lay blame. It doesn't work to think we have to be right at all costs. We can never be right all the time. And we see that going on around us, all around us. And we see, you know, I think last week I used the word mess, that America's in a mess right now. Because we've gone off in a direction that is not meant to work. The way that we humans were created to be, that doesn't work for us or for anybody, not for our government, not for our families, not for our relationships with one another. It just doesn't work. So we have to be willing to change, which I don't see much willingness right now around us. But we have to make it a point to be conscious enough, be willing to change, and acknowledge that our freedom and our democracy and our attitude towards one another right now isn't working well. And I think I said to you last week, and it's worth saying again, I've always made it a practice not to talk about politics in the pulpit, and I don't intend to talk about politics in the pulpit today. It's really not about politics. It's about something bigger than that. It's about who we are as human and who we are as divine. And that is something that is important to ministry and to ministers. And that is our job, is to look at when we have strayed from what we know is a spiritual path. And I recognize this last week and do again. All of you are here. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because I feel like you feel the way I do or you wouldn't be here. But it is worthy of looking at the places in which we can make a difference. So I acknowledge and honor all of you who are here and who are coming to refresh and renew your spirit each week. So as we look as ministers and as churches and ministries and religion and see what's missing are two age-old guides to live by. And they're not guides you're gonna get unless you do come to church, basically. And one of them is the golden rule. The golden rule, we talked about that, I think, at length last week. The golden rule is simple. It's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's a really conscious way to live. You just check in with yourself. Am I doing for someone else what I would want them to do for me? It's a yes or no answer. If the answer is no, we know we can start over, we can make a different path. But the golden rule is in every religion. It's in every ancient religion. We talked last week about the fact that it's in the Hindu religion. The Hindu religion is more than 8,000 years old. Hindu religion has been around for thousands of years. And they have their form of the golden rule, as does every other religion and every other spiritual path. They say them differently based on their language, but the intent is the same, that we do unto other people the way we would want other people to do unto us. We have an obligation as ministers to look at any point in our society and say, what got us here? Is it my job, or what is my job to make that path straight again? So it's not about politics, it's about morals. And we lose our way as a society, in any country, not just this one. We have to get back to the teachings of who we are morally, because that's the only thing that works. And the morals that we live by come from the church. They come from the spiritual paths, always. That's where we've always gotten our morals and our decency, our honesty, our ethics, our reminders daily and weekly to be kind and just, good to one another, and that all people are included in that, not just our best friends. That's what ministry is, and that's what church does. And that's what I have been called in this series to just refresh all of our memories about. If we live by the golden rule and we live by the 10 commandments, our lives work. Our relationships work. It's that simple. And they are the foundation of trust. How are your relationships with someone you can't trust? You don't have one, do you? It's a shaky relationship if you're not able to trust. Whether it's a marriage, whether it's a friendship, or a business dealing, it doesn't last very long unless that concrete foundation we call trust holds it up. And the trust comes from knowing that when I deal with you, I'm going to get your best. You're going to get my best. And if you don't get it, we're going to talk about it. And we're going to build a trust with one another that says we care about how we treat one another. And we care if we trust one another. And it really only takes those two spiritual things, the golden rule and the 10 commandments. Pretty simple. We can all let all that other stuff ride. You know, whether we sing in church on Sunday or take communion or, you know, all the other rules and regulations that religions do are not nearly as important as how we treat one another. That's the meat of the subject. And we talked last week about Mahatma Gandhi. We talked at length about his life and how he was mistreated and how he chose to make his life about making the world work for everyone. And we're going to have on February 13th, so mark your calendar, we're going to have the movie about Gandhi. And we'll have it here starting at 2:30 in the afternoon, which gives you a chance to go eat some lunch and then come back after lunch. If I make it any later in the day, you'll go home and take a nap. So I'm going to make it early enough in the day that you'll have some lunch and come back. It's a marvelous movie. It's kind of long. We start at 2:30. We'll get out around 3:30, maybe 4 o'clock. But it's a movie worth watching and seeing how this man would not allow anyone in his camp, if you will, in his movement. He wouldn't allow anyone to be there who wasn't peaceful. And anybody who chose not to be peaceful was not allowed to come back. He and his movement freed 7 million people of Indian descent from the British. The British had taken over India. And the British considered India theirs. And they treated the Indian people horribly. And he decided to do something about it. So he freed 7 million Indians from British rule. So the movie's about that. It's really worth watching. He was totally peaceful, never fired a shot, never had any kind of a weapon. So it informs us of what is possible in our world as well. We got more birds chirping. Raccoons and birds. I am not going to be bothered by that.
Live and let live.
It's so funny. You have to laugh. Well, Corey, he thought he got every one of them. We thought we did, He said, you're not going to have to worry about that again. We took care of all of them. Who knows? I don't even know where it is. Anyway. So we get back to the business at hand, which is allowing ourselves to be present to that golden rule every moment of every day and stay close to that teaching and know that where we've gone astray has not been helpful. Society at large, not the people in this room, but society at large has chosen to follow power and wealth and fame and stay divided and not be interacting with everyone. So we want to stay close to those teachings. And we ask ourselves, what values do we can identify the values that we hold dear. Then we can also be conscious of how we can stay on that path. If we stay away from church, we forget. If we stay away from the teachings of the masters, we forget. We can stay close to the teachings of the masters with things like Darlene's meditation or A Course in Miracles. There are so many ways to stay in touch with the spiritual side of us that keeps us on a path that out there in society we're really not being given that opportunity. Sometimes we think, oh, I'm just too busy. I don't have time to go to church on Sunday. I don't have time to go to meditation. I don't have time for all of that. And besides that, I'm only one person. Why try? We can tell ourselves all kinds of things like that, but none of that's true. We aren't too busy. And as I said, one person can do a lot. And one of the things that we can do that I wanted to touch base with today, which is part of the title of my talk today, is asking yourself, what do you value? What do you value? What do you value enough that you would stand up for? I asked myself that question. I thought about people, the men and the women who serve in the armed forces, who go to war. What do they value? They give up their lives. Not only the time that they're away, but sometimes their life. They die for what they value and what they stand up for. We have to value our servicemen and women for one thing. We can't ever take that for granted. And what they value, what they will stand up and give their life for in the service is our freedom. Our freedom. And think about your freedom. How much do you value your freedom? It's our God-given right to be born free. Everything is born free. Everything has it's a capacity within to be free. When that's taken away from us, everything else doesn't work. And we can't say we value freedom when we are taking sides with or valuing people who are only chasing power and wealth. Because the people chasing power and wealth are only interested in their own power and wealth. Not interested in anybody else or anyone else's freedoms. We have to keep that in mind because that's happening in our country today. We have to be able to look and see who is honoring the truth of being free, who is honoring all people's desire and right to be free. So, what is unity value? Since all of you are here today, and this will go out on the internet, I hope we have sound this time. But what we honor and value in unity, and really in New Thought, is we believe that all people are children of the same Creator. We believe that the essence, the very essence of all humans is love, whether they're showing it or not. It's really who we were born to be, whether we've gotten away from it or not. The essence of all human is love. We believe we were all created in the image and likeness of that Creator which created us. We believe God is our source God is our source of all sufficiency. And this is important because in unity we don't believe there's any lack or limitation on the planet. Only in our mind. And in our mind we can create lack and limitation. But we live in an abundant world. And we give in an abundant world. We live in an abundant world that gives freely. And in unity we believe that each and every person has within them a spark of the divine. And we call that in unity the Christ presence, the Christ, the Christos, the title given Jesus, stood for peace and love and truth and joy and wisdom. Because he was fully all of those attributes, he was given the high honor of the title of Christos in Latin, the Christ. And we believe that every one of those attributes are within us all. Whether we're exhibiting them or not, whether we even know we have them or not, we all have within us love and truth and joy and peace and wisdom. It's in us all. We're told in unity and in New Thought that we are the hands and feet of God in action. Nothing can be done for us that can't be done through us, whether it's about us individually or whether it's about the world around us. It's in us. And when we are aware of that, we can live from that sacred place, that presence that is within us, and go within and call upon that. And that's why the practice of prayer and meditation in unity is so very important, because it is through our prayers and our meditations that we are guided into how to act, into the actions that we should take. It is through prayer and meditation that we're brought back to the center of our divine essence. We're human, and we honor the human in us, but there's a divinity in us. There's a divine presence in every one of us, which is the power that we have to draw from. We do that through going within, to getting in touch with that spirit within us that we call our divine essence. It reminds us that every living human is both divine and sacred, as well as human. And when we can stay in touch with that, to the degree that we can stay in touch with that, each one of the beliefs that we have in this new thought called unity frees us from our basic fears and makes the way clear for us to live in peace with each other. We truly do believe that peace begins within each one of us, just as the song says, and then moves out from us to lift the hearts and minds of other people. It reminds us that we're family. We're a global family. We need to remember that. We need to remember that there's no separation. In unity, the thing we value is there's no separation. We're not Jews or Gentiles. We're not black or white. We're not Asian or Caucasian. We're not Democrat or Republican. We're family. We're one global family, created by the one Creator who created each and every one of us. We all want the same thing. No matter who you are in our global family, we all want to be loved. We all want to give love. We all want to be respected. None of us wants to be treated unfairly or unkindly. We all strive for the same thing. Doesn't matter the color of our skin, or the religion, or the political views. We all want the same thing. You come to a Unity Church, for those of you who perhaps may be fairly new. When you come to a Unity Church, you won't hear that you're a sinner. You won't hear that you need to be saved from anything. You won't hear that you need to join the church. We love it when you do, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to give a certain amount of money to be able to be here. That is not in our belief system. When you come here, you hear you are a perfect child of God. And your job is merely to love and nurture yourself as well as all others. That's it. You don't look at, I think we talked about this last week, you don't look at the word sin. You don't talk about sin in this church. Sin's an archery term. It just means you missed the mark, you missed the bullseye. That means you get to do it again. It doesn't mean that there's anything bad or wrong with you, or you're should be ashamed, or whatever some people try to lay on you. None of that is true. You are a perfect child of God, perfect in every way, and every imperfection is perfect. Because it is your school. It's how we learn. We learn by making mistakes. And so just remember, when somebody says you're a sinner, just remind them that, yeah, that's an archery term. I just missed the bullseye. I get a do-over. And you try again and again until you get it right, and you don't have any shame or remorse about it, because you are a perfect child of God, perfect in every way. And last week I brought this up, and I'm going to bring it up again because I think it's important. In Unity churches all around this world, we end our services with a song that has these lines. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Peace on earth can only begin with us, each one of us. And so we remind ourselves with that old song every week, let peace begin with me. It helps us to get intentional about our personal commitment, being peaceful no matter where we go, whether we're in our own home, or at the grocery store, or in the church, or wherever we are. It's to bring ourselves back to our center, to go within and know that this is where peace begins. It begins with us. We have to believe that a peaceful world is possible. We just have to believe that. We have to hold to that vision, and we have to choose leaders and hold them accountable to believing the same thing. Our leaders have gone astray, but our leaders depend on us to either take them out of office or put them back in. So we have to hold them accountable too for their behavior, because they are normal and human, and they go astray as well. And in Unity, what we value are the teachings of Jesus. We talk about this frequently here. Of all all the world's great men, Jesus has been considered the supreme example of moral perfection in both his character and his teachings. As best we can tell, Jesus obeyed and lived from all of God's commandments. And he selflessly demonstrated love and compassion for the needy, to the needy. And he lived and struggled unremittingly for equal rights for everyone. Martin Luther King said of Jesus, he did not seek to overcome evil with evil. He overcame evil with good. And although he was crucified by hate, he responded with aggressive love. Jesus' impeccable moral character was reflected in all of his actions and all of his teachings. Many moral teachers, spiritual teachers, talk about rules to live by. But Jesus taught us by his example. He made the example everywhere he went. That our priority should be love. Love our neighbors as ourselves. He always taught by example, not just words. He continually demonstrated the love and the kindness to everyone he encountered. And because of that, as with no other powerful person in history, he remains the major influence, as he has been for over 3,000 years. For over 3,000 years, he's been a major influence. More books have been written about Jesus than any other person in history. His Sermon on the Mount established a new paradigm of ethics and morals. Even now, and we pointed this out last week, 100 great universities, including Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Dartmouth and Columbia and Oxford, they were all started by people who were followers of Jesus. Hospitals and schools and humanitarian works have all been founded in the name of his teachings. And I especially like this one when you study the New Testament. Women in Jesus' day were considered inferior, and virtually they were non-persons until his teachings came along. And Jesus' teachings elevated the role of women in Western culture later, because the root traces back, the root of equality for women traces back to how Jesus taught them and treated women. And the thing that's amazing about it is that he only was in ministry 3 years, 3 short years. So what this tells me is that he was on the right track. That the peace and the love and the attributes of the essence of who we are is still alive today because it resonates. You see, it resonates with all of us. Things that resonate hang around, don't they? We hang on to them. And so that which he was, and that which he showed to be, and that which he spoke of and exampled, resonated with humanity because it is truly who we are in the deepest part of ourselves. And that's why, of all the world leaders, spiritual and otherwise, he remains the one who's been the most influential. So, kind of wrap it up. We have to learn to love and care for one another. We have to learn to demand that our leaders do likewise. And we have to know that if they do not, that we can hold them accountable and we can replace them. We've got to turn this thing around. The ship has got to be turned around. We live in a country that was founded on freedom. Freedom does not mean that I get to be free, but you don't. That's not what freedom is. That's what we're seeing these days. Freedom means everyone is free. It means honoring and valuing the rights of all people. It means recognizing that we're all created to be free. And to be free means that we have the freedom to love who we want, to worship where we want, to be free to travel wherever we wish to go, to have ownership of our own bodies, to love each other, not want to endanger others because of our own selfishness. We need to take care of those who are less fortunate, who cannot take care of themselves. If we are not abiding by all of those things, then fear has crept in somewhere. Because we're either in love or we're in fear. And so when we see, are we abiding by all of these ways that we love and honor one another, and we honor and love the freedom, not only for ourselves, but for all humans? We're either choosing love or fear. Fear causes us to choose hate over love. Fear causes us to choose greed over sharing and caring and loving. Fear causes us to choose guns over love, even for our children. We've lost our way, and we have to find it again. And I think we have to find it again soon. But we have the perfect model. We have the perfect way shower. Jesus has shown us the way, continues to show us the way. As have all the spiritual masters, Buddha and Mohammed and Rumi and all the people who have lived from love and peace and freedom. Because love is the way to peace. Don't you feel peaceful when you're in love? Isn't that just the most wonderful way to feel? That's possible at all times. So what we want to do is we want to get back to the values. We want to remember to respect one another, to care for those who are less fortunate than we are, and to insist that we choose leaders who serve the common good of all people, who stand for the peace of all people. Let us love one another, and always remember, love is way more powerful than fear. We are loving. We are empowered. Let's take that now into a time of meditation. Let's move into that place where we can take a deep breath and we can think about what's been said here today, how it might affect us, what next step we may each be able to take. Maybe it's to lend a helping hand, or lift someone up with encouraging words. Or be a supportive presence for someone who's struggling. Peace and love do start with us. as we radiate it out into what we see that may be of a need. And we all have that theme within us that we love to support. Perhaps we like to support animals, or we love to support our earth. There's so many causes that we can support. We want to be the one who reveres life, to know that we do have special abilities and gifts to share for the good of all life. So in whatever way that it feels right to you, in whatever way that you feel like you can be a conduit for divine love and light, choose that way. Give that your love and your attention. As you give love, it comes back 100-fold, and that is a promise. And so we practice love in word, and in truth, and in action. And we give thanks that we have that ability and that capability to make sure that all people everywhere feel the value that they are, freedom that they have to be who they are. Let that be our major value, the one we stand for, the one we would even fight for if we needed to. We give thanks for that freedom that we do have, and we pray to be guided by how to keep that, how to extend that out. We say, thank you, God. So it is.